Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, we're going to go ahead and get
Yes.
started. Just wanted to say, I hope you've had a good day and that you're enjoying this beautiful weather. It is here anyway. Still the pollen's everywhere, but I'm enjoying it not being as cold as it was. But just want to let you know, please keep Dr. Revis in your prayers. She is at the emergency room as we speak with her husband. Has not been well for a few days now, and so they asked her to take him on this afternoon to the emergency room, and they were going to admit him through the emergency room into the hospital to start running a series of tests. He has been a sick man over the past 2 years and has come a long ways, but then she's seeing some of the same symptoms again. So please keep Dr. Revis and her husband in your prayers, thoughts and prayers this evening. She was concerned. She texted me just a little bit ago, and I told her, I said, do not worry about this class. I said, you are where you need to be. That needs to be your top priority. You focus on your husband, and we're going to be okay. So just wanted to go ahead and let you know that up front. I do know that I think she's looked at all of her classes' work, and you've gotten the feedback that you need from her, and she and I have talked. We talked yesterday, and she was for the most part, she was pleased with everything. There were, and if there was areas or any of you that had to go back and do some additional work, and there were problems, then you know who you are. She's communicated with you, and you take care of those things as well. If for some reason you do reach out to Dr. Revis, and under the circumstances she doesn't get back to you in a timely manner, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Okay, you just say, I can't get up with Dr. Revis. Can we talk, or can you answer this question for me, or whatever, if you're in Dr. Revis's class. But overall, I was extremely pleased with the work for the most part that we had on task 1, and Dr. Revis was too. It showed that you had paid attention to everything that we had told you, and that you pretty much you followed the directions. The turnaround on those assignments, I still got 2 or 3 out there that's got to come in, but for the most part, it was a quick turnaround. You edited what you needed to edit, and you got it back to me pretty quickly. So I know that you understand, or you know what you're what you're supposed to be doing, and if you don't, then you need to reach out to Dr. Revis and or me, and get some guidance if that's where you are with task 1, because we're going to move on. And I'm going to share my screen and show you what this evening needs to look like. And everywhere you see, let me see. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. This is basically what we're going to look. I've already done the first part. Comments about task 1, I've already done it. And again, we're not going to belabor anything about task 1. If you have personal questions or anything, you need to reach out to Dr. Revis or me, and pretty much me at this point. I want to just briefly remind you of your responsibilities for task 2, and I'm going to pull up a document to show you that in just a minute briefly. I'll remind you about your Zoom team assignments that's due this week. I'm going to introduce you to your case study, and then I'm going to go back over task 3 again, and then we'll conclude with questions. I want you to look at the bottom of this. This is under week 11, and Dr. Revis's group, if for some reason she has not put that there, let me know, and I will email this to you until she can get it there. So, but this is just a reminder of what is due and when it's due for this week and next week. Now I want you to notice what I've done. I've highlighted week 11 in the aqua, and I've highlighted week 12 in the future color. So that delineates exactly what you have to do. Task 1 of the AAPTEL is due to the AAPTEL assignment Dropbox no later than this coming Sunday by 9 o'clock. Many of you have already done that. In my class, I've probably over half of you have already cleared task 1 of the AAPTEL, and great job on that. And don't wait until Sunday. If you get it done, get it to me and get it to Dr. Revis. The Zoom 2 assignment is going to be due this week as well, and you should have already been working as a Zoom team. Those, if you have not done that yet, those sessions should be established. You should know when it is. There should be a Zoom leader, and you should be well planned out on that activity, remembering that it is due no later than Sunday of this week. And again, you don't have to wait. The Zoom team the leader is responsible for the leadership in this and carrying out every aspect of this assignment. However, Dr. Revis and I will be looking at the video recordings to see how each of you participated in the scholarly discussion about AAPTEL Task 1 and the future AAPTEL development. This is an opportunity to go ahead and while you're, talk about Task 2 and share some things, and then go ahead and discuss Task 3 as you're going in, thinking about what you're going to do with your growth plan and with your presentations. And then this week also, Task 2 that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes of the AAPTEL is due for peer and instructor review. This is a pretty intense week as far as, if you haven't done it yet, as far as, trying to get your observations in, your walkthroughs in, getting your surveys completed, getting all that done. You have to, it's a pretty intense week to get all that done. But once you get the ball rolling, it's not so bad, it's just getting it done. I will have to say, Sri has completed Task 2 already and did an excellent job. Hers was submitted and already in. So I know that all of this, is aligned and can work. So you just have to work at it. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more. I want you to go ahead, and I went ahead and did this because you need to go ahead and think about, while you're doing this week, what you have to do next week and see how it all works together. And again, that same task that you're going to submit by this coming Sunday, remember your peer reviews are due next Tuesday. Don't slack up on your peer reviews. This is really, you should be intense with them, and you should intentionally look for good things, but you should intentionally look for areas that could be possibly improved, because that is part of your growth in doing evaluations and looking at things. So don't slack up on your peer reviews. And then next week, that is when your Task 2 should be completed, and it goes to the assignment Dropbox. And pretty much once you get the peer review done and you're through with this, you can go ahead and submit it and get that over with. And what I'm going to tell you, and what Dr. Revis is going to tell you, is to go ahead and get started on Task 3 as soon as that's done. And then at the same time, I'm going to introduce you to Task 3, because that will be due for peer and instructor review next week. Not this week, but next week. And then I'm going to go over the case study, because you'll need to go ahead and, while you're meeting as a Zoom team, if you have not met yet, with the task, with the AAPTEL Task 1 task, this is an opportunity at the end to say, okay, let's go ahead and make decisions about our case study, for the next week, when we're going to do it, who's going to lead it, and, take the lead. So this is an opportunity to go ahead and do that at that time. Okay, so this, I would print this out and I would have it at my fingertips, so this can keep you on track with everything that you need to do over the next couple of weeks. Look at the very bottom. We will come online next week, week 12, but week 13, we deliberately leave that open for you. This gives you will have completed, you don't have to come together as a Zoom team for anything. This is absolutely left open for you to start bringing closure to the AAPTEL. Also, it gives you an opportunity, if you're at that point, to because I will have told you what to do with task 4 at that time. And then it also gives you a chance to go ahead and begin looking this week at what you need to do to complete your competency folio and to begin looking at bringing your internship log to a closure as well, because we're getting close to the end. Now, we'll tell you why we're doing all this. You see, this is week 13. That means I've got week 14 and week 15 left. You only have 10 weeks in the summer, maybe 11, but 10 weeks really to get evidences done. I'm going to take this opportunity to go ahead and get you started during week 14 and 15, get you started on what you've got to do with the OMA for your summer session, so that you're not so challenged when that time starts. These are things that you can go ahead and get started on during the interim between this semester ending and summer beginning. So I'm going to deliberately get you started on some things there. And we're going to talk about it. You'll be happy that I did that after we've done it. Let me minimize that. And then I want to bring up, okay, this is what I want.
Dr. Stedman,
yes.
do you know the dates for summer, like the actual weeks?
I do. Give me just a second and let me pull a planner out.
And is there a registration for us to do? Or
no, you're automatically registered unless there would be a problem with this semester, and there shouldn't be a problem with this semester, so you'll be okay.
Okay, great.
You actually start, most of your classes will be on Wednesday for the summer. So your classes, for the most part, will be on Wednesday nights. That's when most of the 603 classes are taught. And we will start the week of May 23rd. So it appears that your first class will be on the 25th of May. We do not have, there's no breaks at all in the summer, and you go probably 11 weeks. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You will be going up until about the last week of July. You'll be bringing closure to things about the last week of July. And if you go on Web Connect, if you go on that page, there's a calendar on there, and you can actually click on the calendar. It's in the center. Click on the calendar, and you can actually click on that, and it tells you when everything begins for the summer and for the fall semester as well. When you just click on that and go to May and then go to August, and it'll tell you.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. Let's look at this again very quickly. Remember, with task 1 of the AAPTEL, your responsibility in those 5 areas was to do the research, the best practice research on what each of those 5 areas look like. That's with teacher efficacy, evaluation. You know the 5 areas. A minimum of 3 references with the research. This was not several of you, there were a few of you that got it confused and you thought that you had to do another annotated bibliography. It was not an annotated bibliography. It was just a mini research on each of those 5 topics with a minimum of 15 references. And that was what the research says in those areas. The best practice is based on what the research says. And then you were to, in prompt 2, there were 2 things you had to do. You had to look at what teacher design or look at an instrument to measure what teacher leadership looks like inside the classroom, and that was your checklist. Your walkthrough checklist. And we told you that if your district used one, that was the one to use. We gave you an example of one that you could use in our notes as well. We just said that you couldn't just make up something, that it had to be something that was valid and reliable based on the fact that it was supported by research or it was supported by your district. So that looked at teacher leadership inside the classroom. And the second thing you had to do was you had to do a survey. And the survey had to be based on what teacher leadership looks like outside the classroom. And we suggested that you didn't, it didn't have to be a lot of questions. It could be anywhere from 5 to 8 questions. There was also some examples in the notes that we had given you, but we said that you could go to the teacher working conditions survey, and that you could actually go to that section in the teacher working conditions survey, and you could actually use those same questions again. And these were going to measure what teachers thought about what it looked like inside the classroom. That's what task 1 was about. Task 2 now. This is where you're going to take everything that you did in task 1, and you're going to actually put it to the test in task 2. With the permission of your principal, you were going to have to take you were going to actually go back and look. Well, first of all, you're going to go back and look at those 5 areas. Those 5 areas. Research said this, but in my school, when I began to do my observations, when I began to talk to teachers, when I began to talk to administration, and then a lot of it, what because you worked there. Remember, you're looking at research says this, but this is actually what is happening in my school. This is what I see. This is what the principal says. This is what teachers say is qualitative research. So you're going to go back and you're going to look at each of those 5 areas. Now, don't go back and regurgitate the research that you've done. However, when you do your narrative work, it would be wise to say, okay, according to research, blah, 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 this should be happening. However, when doing observations in my school or doing, a focus group interview or talking with my administration, this is what actually is happening at XY school. And that's the way you should say that. So your research is tied in there, and it may be that you find another valid piece of research to tie in there other than something that you've already got, or you can go back and you can take an excerpt from the research that you have previously done. Again, don't regurgitate it, restate it in an abbreviated way as you need to make a point with what your findings are. And you're going to do that for all 5 areas. Again, this is actually what what you see, what teachers say, what is happening in your school. Now, it's not that you're trying to find things wrong, but there probably are some things wrong that can be fixed or need addressing. That's the whole purpose of this. We know that as good as we are, we can always get better, but we know that the state of the school right now, everywhere is because of everything we've dealt with, things can be better. So, that's what you're working at, trying to figure out, what's wrong so you can make it better, or what needs addressed so you can make it better. Then when you get to prompt 2, and I'm not going to go through all of this right here, you've got this. When you go to prompt 2, prompt 2 is where you are going to visually show everything you're going to visually talk about your walkthroughs. You're going to visually talk about what the principal says about walkthroughs. You're going to visually talk about the findings. Now, I would suggest that in those areas where you've done your survey results, that you actually show in a pie graph, a bar graph, or something. You actually show those results. Now, remember, you can go back. The most recent results of the teacher working conditions survey, I think, goes back to 2020. Even though you may have just done it, you don't have those results back. So your most recent one is 2020. You can go back and make a comparison that in 2020, this particular area that you addressed in your survey found that in your school, this is what was happening. And you can make a comparison as to what it looks like now. Now, if there's a lot of variables that could determine a difference between 2020 and now. Administration could have changed. And if administration changed and it's for the better, then when you survey teachers now, they're going to look at things possibly differently than they did in 2020. You would say that in your narrative work. You would clarify why it looks differently. And at least you know that you're moving in the right direction, with things. But it's your opportunity to visually show all those findings that you're doing in the work that you're doing this week, in your walkthroughs, in your surveys, in your interviews, in your, anything that you can put in there to tell your story about what it looks like in your school based on those areas. Okay, Jasmine?
Hey, Dr. Sutton, I have a quick question. That teacher working conditions survey, the one that came out in 2020, so I know that was when COVID started. My
Right.
question is, was it released in March of 2020, just like it was just released this year?
It should have been. There shouldn't have been any difference in that.
Okay.
I know
I just didn't know if it was released at a different time.
It's there though, and it's there because that's what I pulled up the other week when I was showing you the teacher working condition survey. That's what I pulled up, the 2020 results.
Okay. No, I was just asking that because I didn't know if it was already the time where people were told they had to be at home.
And you can say that can be in your narrative work too. You can say, that while these were the results, a lot of factors could have played into why, things, it was, COVID, we were as we say in the South, slap dab in the middle of COVID. And, it was, there were just a lot of factors. So you can narratively talk about any of those factors that you feel like that would have maybe negatively contributed to something not being as good as it could have been.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
But so that's what that's your task this week, is that you're actually looking at what it looks like in your school, because you've got to see, you're looking for the gap. The research says this is what's happening, because your goal is to do a growth plan in task 3 that's going to do what? Close the gap. That's our goal. Okay, before I go any further, any questions about what you are being required to do this week?
Dr. Stedman, I have a question.
Sure.
We have, we're doing advanced ed, but my school's 5-year term is up next year. So they won't actually get surveyed till next year. The last time they got surveyed should have been 18, 19. And we have like all new people in those positions. So I've asked the administrator at the district office if he could find those, and he's brand new as well, and he's having a hard time. So I'm afraid that I won't have that information when I'm ready to submit this paper, because I'm trying to do it by Thursday.
The advanced ed report should be online though, Tracy. You should have access to that.
Now, okay, so when I went on it and it said advanced ed is now Cognia. So when I went on to Cognia, I can't sign in. It's not allowing me to sign in.
Okay.
So is there another way?
Is there somebody at the district office that you can talk to about that?
I'll try. I'll call them tomorrow.
Try somebody at the district office, and somebody's got to have a paper copy of that report somewhere. They would keep the file. If you can get to the right supervisor at the district office, you can get your hands on what you need. And I would make that a point. Okay. Okay. Jonathan.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Dr. Stedman. With the walkthroughs and observations, I really can't leave the classroom without somebody coming to supervise my classroom. If I can't get that done before Thursday, because Friday we're out on a teacher work day, would I be able to make observations next week? Or because I have made some observations, but not with the formal tool that our district uses.
How many observations have you done?
I've walked through the entire building. I took a day and I was able to walk through the entire building, but it was a short walkthrough. It wasn't a long 30, 40-minute session.
They're supposed to be 30 or 40-minute sessions. They're supposed to be only like 10 or 15 minutes at the most.
I've done that with the informal, not with any tool or rubric, but I've done it for the entire building.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you have a planning period?
Yes, I do.
Take your planning period and you can knock out 2 or 3 in a planning period time.
So it doesn't have to be because the tool that I have is specific for math.
Find you some math people during that time.
Gotcha.
Just find you some math people and make it work. You can make it work. Don't make it hard. Just make it work.
How many observations should I have?
3 to 5.
3 to 5.
Is the minimum. 5 is a good number. But try as best you can, and you can knock them out. And if you can get somebody to just to sit in your class for a few minutes for like 15 or 20 minutes, maybe you can go in and do one. But just work strategically to get these things done.
Okay. As well as the survey, using at least 10 from the survey?
I would say, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anna?
Sorry, my camera on my computer's like really weird tonight, but I just had a question about, you were talking about the interviews. Can you explain that one more time? I've got the walkthrough and I've got the survey. Can you go over the interview one more time? What we could do with that? And
that's a suggestion. That's where you are, where you would maybe with your PLC, you pull them together and you just ask them specific questions about what, based on the things you're working with, how they feel about things in the school. What do they think when it comes to teacher efficacy or teacher morale or teacher leadership inside and outside the classroom? What do they have to say about that? And it's just an opportunity to actually script what some of them say and put that in your work if you choose to do that.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you.
And then it could be where you interview your assistant principal or interview your principal about things.
Okay.
Okay. Or a
right.
literacy coach, a math coach.
Okay. Okay.
Any of those.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Simone?
Hey, Dr. Sedman. So
Hey.
I was looking at the template and I just wanted to make sure, is it okay if we use, I know we have the walkthrough data collection and I see it in the template as like figures. If we also kind of put that in like chart information, because I kind of want to compare against the 5.
You can
versus,
put it,
like,
you can
5
put it in chart information, but call it figures still.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure that was
No,
okay, because I want to
you're-
be able to show it against 5 teachers.
Absolutely. In fact, I love to see charts.
Okay, perfect.
I think I'm an organizer and that helps me understand things better.
Sounds good. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, good questions. Other questions? Okay, if you think of something on task 2, we'll come back to it. Now, what I want to do is I want to lead you into task 3 because many of you are going to be at that point or already at that point. So I just want to lead you into it so that you can. Now, remember, once you have completed task 2, you have identified the gaps. You've identified the perceived problems at your school. And your job now is to say, okay, we've identified problems. Now you're going to meet with when you get to this point, you're going to meet with your PLC and you're going to say, this is what I found. You're going to be very candid with your PLC. You're going to talk to them about your findings. This is what the results show. Now we've got to fix some things. What do we need to address? And you're going to narrow the focus on what, because there could be many areas that's concerned. But it's just like when you in the AAPTEL where you came up with that most pressing need. You're going to look at the most pressing need based on your gap or pressing needs. You possibly could focus on a couple. And remember, I told you the other week that you could look at what leadership looks like inside the classroom, what leadership looks like outside the classroom, and what are the perceived problems based on what you have found out from the work you've done with task 2. You're going to use the same format as far as your graphic organizer is concerned. These are the headings. Again, once you identify, you're going to talk about it narratively, what your plan is going to be about, what you've identified as the need or needs based on, now it must align itself with what you've done in task 2. You can't do all that work in task 2 and then come to task 3 and just create something that's not even found in task 2. So it must align itself with what you've done in task 2. And then with that, you're going to say, okay, this is what I have found or what we have found. And then you're going to begin looking at, now, how are we going to fix it? You're going to look at specific activities to address that problem. And again, you're going to look at multiple activities. You're going to look at when are you going to address it? Again, remember we talked about before we said that there were short-term, mid-term, and long-term things that you could do. What can you do to begin looking at this now before school's out? And then you're getting close to the end of the year. What can you propose that will be a part of the growth plan for teacher empowerment and leadership going into next school year? Who's going to be responsible for all of this? I would think that, you as the candidate, you're going to help with this. Your administration's going to help with this. If you've got coaches at your school, you want them involved in this. You want teachers because the buy-in must be there. So you're going to look at all the people that's going to help with the activities that you've identified in column 1. Who's going to be responsible for this? Then what is it going to take to get it done? It could be staff development. And if it's staff development, identify the specific staff development. Anything that you need, if it monetarily, if it's going to require fiscal resources, you must talk about it, but it must be something that feasibly can be done, that your principal could support financially through Title I funding or other funding that comes in. So again, you're going to identify the activities. When is it going to be done? Who's going to do it? And what are you going to need at this point? DeAmber, before I go any further.
So my question is, as far as an artifact, do we have to record this PLC or take any pictures? Because during this time period of task 3, we're going to be out on spring break all next week. So nobody will be in the building for me to necessarily meet with. So
Okay, what you're going to have to do, because that is a requirement, and when it's evaluated, they're going to look for that. So what you need to do is to well, I'll tell you what, if any of you are going to be on spring break next week, then you may have to turn in everything to me, to Dr. Revis and me up to that point, and do your presentation on that Monday when you come back, or that Tuesday when you come back. We'll talk about that, okay? But
okay.
we will.
See if you can get some of them do a Zoom. If
And I
there's
was
some
gonna say
teachers that are
yes.
around.
You can do that. You have a Zoom option as well. But now you've got to include your administration. So you've got to be cognizant of whether they would be amenable to taking their time on spring break to do that. So I'm going to give you the option. You can do that. But
Yeah.
if you're on spring break, you need to let Dr. Revis and me know. And then we will work with you like we did with the other, and you turn everything in except the presentation. And then we will actually tell you when. I tell you what, let's just go ahead and solve that problem. We need to approve this before you present it anyway. Okay? So if you get it to us before that next Sunday night when it's due, you can move forward with that, because we need to say that this is we like what you've done. You can move forward with your presentation, and then your presentation can come. You can get it to us, the final thing, the next week, because it won't be due until the next week. We'll work with you with that though, DeAmber. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes, because I understand like doing it on Zoom, but the morale is so low, just to be transparent, and
Yeah.
everybody is like checking out now.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't know who I would get to.
Okay, we'll be okay. And all of you, this is all of you, we can work with you with the presentation. All the work needs to be done, but if it means that you need a couple of days on the presentation like we did with the AAPTEL, we will work with you with that, okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody good? Okay, and then let's go back. Remember, you're not working with children, you're working with adults. So your formative assessment is going to be, what kind of formative assessments are you going to look at to measure what the adults are doing? Remember, you've got to make sure that what you are proposing is being done with fidelity, that is not just something on paper, that there is actually, how are you going to determine that teachers are doing what they need to do, or what has been outlined to be done? Now, there's lots of ways you can do that. You know, with staff development, there's a staff development roster, attendance is required. There's follow-up surveys that can be completed or whatever. Those are things that can be done, you know, in your monitoring of things. This is with adults. This is, how do you know what you are proposing is being done, and being done with fidelity? And you know what summative is? This is not with children. This is with adults. In the end, how do you know that what you've proposed has worked or not? Because if it worked, you need to know that it worked. And what will the next step be? If it didn't work, you got to figure out why it didn't work and what have I got to do to try to take care of why it didn't work. Okay, then these are your goals. What is your whole purpose? What is your, again, it kind of goes back to what we've talked about over here. You know, when we talk about the timeline, this is when, but this is, what are your goals? What do you hope to accomplish? In the short term, I kind of got ahead of myself. In the short term, in the midterm, in the long, what do you hope to accomplish with what you're proposing? And then again, how do you know that you were successful or not? And this ties back into your summative assessment somewhat. In the end, how do you know it worked or not? Your indicator of success. How will you know? Then you must present this to your administrator. Again, remember all of these areas. You're gonna first of all, you're gonna write about it, and then you're going to put it into your plan. And then look here. When you present to your staff, your team, your administration at a minimum, this is what it should consist of. It should be a recorded slideshow or PowerPoint presentation with a minimum, a report of best practices. And those are the things that you've done your research on. A visual checklist. This is what I found. You will have already done that. What was the gap that you found? What was the gap? And then this is what I'm proposing that we do. And you're going to write exactly, what your administration, you would want to know, what the teachers had to say about this, what the, if there were comments from the administration. You would conclude with a narrative about, what did it look like in your presentation? But this is a pretty formal presentation. So, you need to take this very seriously when you go before your administration. D'Amber, you still have a question?
No.
Okay, I just saw your hand raised, Gil. I didn't know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Now I'm going to minimize this. And again, we'll talk about this more next week, but we knew that there would be people ready to move forward with this before this week's over with. So we wanted to go ahead and give you the tools that you needed to be able to move forward. You may not be ready to ask questions this week on that, but it gives you enough to think about and to do what you need to do, and know that we will answer whatever questions that you need from that when we come back together next Tuesday. Okay. Now, I want to let's look at this. Remember, and this is, again, this is not this week, but I'm going to go ahead and show you that where you find what you need to find for your case study, for the AAPTEL, and you go back to the same place where you did case study materials, and you're going to, there's the directives again. You're going to go to scenario 2, a community of teachers, and this is, and you're to align this with the work that you're specifically doing with the AAPTEL, and you can make reference to the AAPTEL work if you need to, but this is specifically aligned with the work that you're doing with the AAPTEL. And again, you will do a written reflection, a 2-part written reflection as you did the first time, and your Zoom link will be attached to that as well. So whenever you meet with your Zoom team this week to complete the AAPTEL 1 work, I would suggest that you go ahead and you move forward with making assignments or deciding who's going to do what, and go ahead and get that off your plate, and you can go ahead and plan your time next week, knowing that this is going to be built into your schedule. Anything? Okay. What questions would you have at this time? I'm through. I'm worn out. Any questions? And I don't know about you, but my sinuses have given me a fit. It's been a
Yes.
time.
My
Yeah.
eyes are dry.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The walkthrough form, which is not really a form that my school uses, they basically, so you have the 4.0 rubric for South Carolina.
Okay.
That they use for all of their formal observations and things
Okay.
of that nature.
Hey,
So what my school does.
Can I stop you,
when
Tracy? I can help you. I can help you. You won't even go. You take that 4.0 and you find the sections in it that you extract what you want from that. You put it into your own form, and that becomes your walkthrough. You pull what you need.
Okay, that's what they do.
Yeah, and you say that you extracted this from what South Carolina uses, the 4.0 instrument, and that you have pulled sections from that for your walkthrough, and that makes it valid and reliable. Okay,
Gotcha.
I knew where you were going. We've done this before with South Carolina, so we knew what to do.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
Thank you.
You are welcome. Other questions? Sri, before we leave, talk to them about your experience with task 2, since you have completed that.
Well, I just went with your suggestion. I didn't overthink it, overanalyze it. I kept it simple. And for the prompt 1 of task 2, I basically looked at the survey results, analyzed them, and looked at what I had researched up on in terms of best practices and what the survey results actually said. And I compared them. And sometimes I used same resource, but different sections of the same resource, because what I had done in task 1 was actually very thorough. So I didn't think that I needed to go and dig through other resources. And sometimes I did. So I went to those resources, pulled out information from those resources, and compared what the best practices said and what the survey results said. Sometimes the school did better than what the best practices said. And that time I said there were no gaps seen. And I explained what I saw, and I justified that. And sometimes there were 2 places where the school did not perform based on the recommendations of the best practice. And that's where I saw the gap. And I said, well, this would have to be looked at when I do the needs analysis or the needs assessment. So I left it at that for prompt 1. And I did a thorough analysis with charts and graphs, and the number of responses, what percentage said what, or what percentage felt what, and all that. And then for prompt 2 of task 2, it was based on the walkthroughs that I had conducted. I was able to accomplish 8 walkthroughs, and I did actually a couple more today. I couldn't include them because they're already done with the task. I looked at the checklist. I took the checklist with me when I went to the walkthroughs, and I wrote my notes down there, and then I compared them per checklist, so checklist 1 was the standards listed. So then, I would say candidate A, B, C, D listed their standards, but then, E, F, and G did not have their standards, but they had a learning goal. And then what happened to checklist number 2, checklist number 3? So I just went with that. I kept it all organized. And anything else that I saw that was not on the checklist, but that was that made me go, well, whoa, this is a really good practice. I included that in my essay as well. The leadership team that I went with had this habit of writing feedback to the teachers. So they allowed me to take the lead on that. So I was able to write I labeled it as wows and wonderings. So what I was thrilled when I saw in the classroom, I left them under the wow section. And what I saw in terms of, how would you improve on this? Or, if I had a recommendation, of course, I'm not an admin there, so I can't really come across as, well, why was this happening and why did I not see that? So instead, I left it as, what would you do if a student was disengaged, or how could you get them more enthusiastic about this project? So I left them, with some questions that they could reflect upon in terms of their practices in the classroom. So I included a paragraph about that in my task too. So that is how I wrapped it up.
Thank you for sharing that, Sri.
Thank you.
Before we close, any further questions? You feel good about where you are and what the challenge is ahead of you this week? You're almost there. Smile, Cindy. I know everybody's getting tired. I know that, but you're almost there. Anyway, reach out to me if you need me. And again, Dr. Revis's students, if for some reason you reach out to her and you're not able to get a quick response back to her, do not hesitate to reach out to me. My phone number is 910-633-4816, and it's in, I think you've got that already, but if you don't, it's okay to call me if you need to. Okay. Okay, good night, everybody, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye-bye.